forced to maintain that internally until I integrated through therapy, through retrieving and returning and turning back to myself, going back to that child back there and letting her tell me how she really felt about what took place and experience those emotions and bring them into my body and being and become totally current with my emotional life inside of this lifetime. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And then when I'm talking about the process of ascension, what I'm talking about there is kind of from a metaphysical point of view. It's to me, I really, really believe that it's kind of like I wrote in an essay not that long ago about Othello. I don't know if you're familiar with that whole story, but you know, it's like it was an essay I wrote called Othello, Naivete and the Predicament of the Innocent. And it has to do with this phenomenon. To me, it has to do with the fact that there's so much going on in our reality. When we talk about the shadow, it's like when I said in that essay, I said, you know, as we realize that the shadow exists now in the very places our consciousness is meant to inhabit, we see that we are mighty in our potential indeed. Like when I look out into this world, I don't see what I see going on that sort of shadow realm level, including abuse of children and all these dark things that are going on that have to do with the subjugation of each other, enslavement of humanity on a daily level that most people are living out and having to live life separated from ourselves and all of these things that we see going on. I believe that is in place here because we're not living at the level that is our real potential as human beings, okay? Which I do believe we're divine beings, and we have all these capacities that if we got up and we had our life force to ourselves each day, and we got up and we weren't living under all these, to me, these synthetically imposed conditions, we would be extraordinary. And so the process of ascension from that included in that concept is just the movement from a certain belief about ourselves and our potential as human beings and coming into a different level of consciousness, just kind of a jump up from there, where we begin to see that we are these Christed beings. It would be another way of saying it, kind of like the Jesus idea where he would walk around and say, hey, we have all these potentials. And we all know that, whether it's Buddha or different beings have walked among humanity in the past. And they've said, hey, you guys, look, you don't realize what you're really capable of as beings here. And to me, I absolutely know that that's true. And I also believe that all these other things, including child abuse, are able to have an entry into this world because we're not existing in our power here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And you had mentioned earlier, and I just want to get your thoughts on it, and it's a topic that not necessarily scares me, but intrigues me, yet there is a little tinge of fear because, 2012.
Uh-huh.
Out of curiosity, what is your views on the year 2012?
On the year 2012, well, I kind of have I'm not really sure, I guess. I would say. I mean, I'm looking at, I'm looking at all of it. I look at where people are coming from all, because I am a metaphysician myself. But like every area of life, including the New Age movement, is completely infiltrated by people who are not integrated. Right. And so, I mean, that has been one of the least inviting and most dangerous areas for me to ever try to exist in intellectually with my work at all, even though that's my place and that should be my home. And it's like, so I think that whole conversation that's taking place, and I listen. I mean, lately I've been kind of listening to a bunch of interviews with New Agers who are everywhere from, people who have been abducted to, kind of like, here's a little piece from my book that I say, can I read it to you really quickly?
Yes.
That addresses this. It says, I listened, this is like a ago, this piece where I say I listen intently as the New Age philosopher talks about childhood trauma on a popular primetime show. This was on a Larry King show. It was kind of like, they just had that sauna death where that guy, it was one of those from that group that guy hangs out in. So it says, I listen intently as the New Age philosopher talks about childhood trauma on a popular primetime show. He has no patience for the past, and he certainly doesn't want to hear the details of someone else's pain. He says when people try to bring up their childhoods to him, he strikes them down and tells them, I don't care about your quote story. I don't want to hear it. His tone is reprimanding. He will not tolerate it or indulge them. He says people bring up stories about their past because they're trying to make themselves seem special. We've all been wounded, he says. We've all been hurt, and so what? He goes on. He dictates with absolute authority that this posture of self-alienation is the prerequisite stance we must each embrace, embody, and hold against the self if we are to have a chance at gaining entry into the world of abundance and happiness here on earth. Our past is irrelevant, he says, with the force of righteous condemnation. He is here to get us on track. We need to get over it, get on with it. It's time to shut down and shut up about our histories. He is succeeding, and as I listen to him speak, my inner child wants to die. I hear I must abandon myself if I am to be whole. I consider what he is saying. Something about where my outer life is compared to his opens me up to consider his point of view. I have become weakened from all the struggling to just get by in this paradigm, and so I consider for a moment if he might be right. I am wondering if maybe, this is just a couple more paragraphs, I'm wondering if maybe he has something that can help me to get to a better place. I listen, I take in what he is saying, I absorb his words, I ingest his edicts. I am to shut off and shut myself down if I am to have success here. I suddenly feel ashamed that I've been so hurt in this lifetime. I'm embarrassed to be me. There is a pit in my stomach. I have taken in what he has said, and I feel afraid and disgusted at this energy, these thought forms moving through me. His words are not unlike my father's. I feel sick with a new fear and shame. I feel embarrassed that I am such a failure here, and this premise of his makes me feel dirty and more horrified than ever. How can this be? Where are these people coming from? How are they reaching such elevated places in our society? How can I be hearing this crap after all these years? How can these New Age philosophers be spouting this cruel and dangerous stupidity and be succeeding on such huge levels? Secretly, I know it is because they and many others have abandoned and condemned themselves, their inner children, and their past to an inaccessible place because it is all just too painful to contemplate or deal with. And this New Age celebrity is giving people hope in a way to make it without ever becoming whole again. And what he proposes is a scary thought to me. More people finding the way to manifest outward success without dealing with this thing. More people with money and power who don't even have compassion for themselves, who have not healed their wounds. More people who will be compelled to reenact their unaddressed traumas onto others and who will be in positions to demand compliance. More people who will feel empowered to do these things and all other kinds of dangerous and unbalanced things with the force of money and success behind them. And so, that kind of gives you my view on what's going on overall in that movement, because there are elements. I believe, like I was saying with the ascension process, I definitely believe, and I've known this from the day I was born, because I'm very conscious of other lifetimes and what I'm doing here metaphysically. And I believe that world, that whole dialogue, it's very rare that I hear anybody inhabiting or sitting there discussing this time of change. There is some talk, where people get, okay, it is a consciousness shift. Mm-hmm. That's more how I see it. What will actually play out on a physical level, I don't know, because I do believe, whether we're acknowledging it or not, we have incredible capacity to manifest our reality. Mm-hmm. And so it's like this sort of
fear bases reality.
Yeah, and people are going to create, people are going to participate in it's like a birthing process is how I look at it. And so we are vulnerable, and I think that people, whether we're acknowledging